I'm bored, let's watch Jesterbell. Okay, so the title for this video is It's Not Bad to Ask for More from Superhero Films You Know. It's about Superman. I was gonna do this a couple of days ago, but we had a bunch of other videos we had to do, so this is a Saturday video. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get into it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we finally come to it. Superman at the box office. And how is it doing? Well, domestically, it came in at $122 million. Now, the good news about that is it managed to avoid the most disastrous projections, which were saying that it might only do $90 million. And while it isn't getting the same heights as the Batman at like $131 million, and the projections that it would get $175 million were complete bogus from the beginning, 122 under all the circumstances for a domestic opening, considering the superhero fatigue and the brand damage to DC.
Superhero fatigue isn't really a thing. I know people keep saying that. They keep saying it. But if you look at the box office this year, you can see that there are other movies suffering fatigue that aren't superhero films. Matter of fact, our first billion-dollar movie in the box office this year was Lilo and Stitch. Minecraft got really close in the box office. It managed to tip over on VOD, so it did make over $1 billion, just not at the box office. I think it was like $955 million at the box office. So it did manage to tick over at home. But other than that, a lot of movies are underperforming this year. A lot of movies are not doing well this year. The superhero fatigue fallacy is a talking point that these channels use to make you believe that there is something inherently wrong with the superhero genre. This is not true. It is not a necessary thing for a superhero movie to underperform for it to be fatigue. There's a lot of other factors that go into that, but these channels don't want to dive into the little nuanced complex box office situation when it comes to movies this year. A lot of it has to do with money. People don't have money. Our economy is not doing great right now. People just do not have money, which is why you see a lot of films that are doing well are family films where people are saying, I can't go to the movies and take my kids to everything. I'm going to be very specific about what I take my kids to, and I have to be very specific about what I'm going to spend my money on, because if I want to take my kids to a movie, I'm going to have to spend a bunch of money on like a bunch of tickets. We're seeing that. The movies that are performing well this year have been pretty much family films.
Movies and just how low the box office in general has been since COVID, that is a good start domestically. However, Superman is not doing well internationally at all.
Superman historically doesn't do well internationally. Okay, so taking a look at numbers here, it looks like Man of Steel only did $377 million internationally. Batman v Superman did $543, probably because Batman was attached to it. But Superman Returns only did $191 international. Spider-Man No Way Home did over $1 billion internationally. Avengers Endgame did almost $2 billion international. And The Dark Knight Rises did $636 million international. Superman movies typically underperform internationally. I don't know if she's going to mention that here or not, but that is just a thing. Superman just isn't a big market outside of domestic. So that isn't really a surprise. Would they have liked to have done better with this movie? Because they hyped it up with like the kaiju, a lot of action scenes, putting James Gunn in charge of it. It seems like they were trying to do that, but it might just be the character. It might just be Superman as a character.
International numbers ideally should come out larger than domestic numbers.
It depends on the movie and the character.
Because you're counting all the countries apart from America towards the box office. But it usually is higher. But this time, the international numbers all put together for Superman didn't even hit 100 million. It's only 95 million at the box office at best for current projections. So that is a problem that has happened with a lot of superhero films.
No, it's not. It's not. I just read off for you. Like, some superhero movies do amazing internationally. Some of the biggest numbers come from international box offices. Superman, in particular, Man of Steel, Superman Returns, shows that the last couple of Superman movies that we've had, specifically just Superman movies, have done poorly on international markets. It's not just superhero movies in general. It's specifically Superman.
They do really well domestically on the first weekend, but they collapse when it comes to legs and internationally.
Not always. That's not an always thing. That's not an always thing. Like, you're being so dishonest to your audience. I typed it in, like, literally, it took me 5 seconds to look this up. 5 seconds. I typed it into the search and I was able to get the information immediately.
Now, one of those things have happened is that it looks like it's collapsing internationally. The domestic box office is going to have to carry a lot. There are still a lot of questions around this film. It doesn't look like it's going to get to 700 million. It might not even be profitable considering all that was put in with the film, with the production budget and the marketing.
It's going to be profitable. It's another lie. It's another lie. This movie will be north of 400 million after this weekend. All it needs to do is cross the 500 million threshold to start being like, doesn't even really need to make that. I think the studio would like to have that. 700 million is their top end. That's the biggest number they're expecting. 500 million, roughly around 500 million is where they want to be total for the movie when it leaves the box office. You're being so disingenuous. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy.
But WB might not need it to be. They were saying a couple of days ago that they would just want it to be $500 million.
Thank God you pulled this up on the screen. Thank God you pulled this up. See, this is what I'm saying. I said it because I know this stuff, and she's pulling it up on screen. I have to give her credit. At least she's pulling it up on screen, but let's see where she goes from here.
Dollars at the box office for them to consider it successful, which that would not be profitable at all. But right now,
how do you know that? See, why would they say that 500 million is successful if they would be losing money? Like, seriously, why would they say that? ROI, return on investment, is extremely important because they have to give some of that money back to people that put money in. So they wouldn't say, hey, we're happy that we're going to end up paying people back money out of our own pockets. They wouldn't say that. They wouldn't say it. That's the other thing is when I get on here and I talk to you guys about numbers for movies and stuff like that, it's always like sort of a kind of rule of thumb type thing, right? I'm not here talking to you guys like a box office expert. I look at what I have in front of me, I research stuff, and I give you that information. When someone is painting a narrative, aka creating stories that they need you to believe in, they're going to play this game where they're talking to you like they're so confident about all this information. You don't have to be. I don't take you guys for granted like that. As the audience, as the people watching my videos, I don't take you for granted. I feel like if I say something and you want to look it up, you can look it up and find out for yourself. But these guys think their audience is stupid and they can say something and their audience isn't going to look anything up. I actually wish their audience would, because you can find the same information they're providing you and you can get more context on that information on your own.
bet the reason why they said that is because that is where a lot of people are thinking that it might come in the $500 million range. When it ends, it's
That's not because people are saying it's going to come in at that range. That's what the studio came out and said. James Gunn laughed when people talked about how much it had to make to be profitable. Here's the deal. If a movie, I'm going to very quickly talk about this because I've made videos about it. If a movie costs $200 million to make, you're not factoring in things like tax rebates, incentives, brand deals, promotional things, all these things that reduce that budget down. The production budget that we get is the budget without subtractions for all of those things. That's the budget that we see, which means that a movie that costs $200 million probably cost about 30 to 50 million less if they did their best to save money on that movie. These folks will never talk about that. Matter of fact, Nerdrotic himself has tried to pretend like the studios lie about budgets, which I've said many, many times, lying about a budget publicly, not an estimated budget, saying that the budget was this amount, 225. If a studio came out and said tomorrow, this movie cost $225 million to make and did not use the word estimated, it's literally fraud if they're lying about it. And if it is an estimated budget, then you and I don't know if that's the definitive budget. So we're going on an estimated number, meaning that's not an actual number they have pen and paper in. This is why I'm telling you, these guys play games. They play in your faces.
A box office run. So we'll see about that. And while it might not be profitable, I do see this as the people at WB talking about whether or not they will continue with this universe, because it did get an A- cinema score. A- cinema score is not great for a action superhero movie. That was the same as what Man of Steel got, but also the same as the Batman got. It means that audiences did not dislike the film, but
an A- is not good in cinema score. Look, I know that like anything lower than an A, like a B or B- is not really good. I think an A- is actually, I'm going to double check this. I want to make sure that she's giving you guys accurate information. So an A- is a good score. It means that the audience generally liked it. It's considered good. Would they like to get something better, like an A plus? I feel like every movie wants an A plus, but an A minus is not necessarily bad. Actually, a B plus says it's a red flag for tentpoles. So any of the A's, A plus, A minus, any of those is going to be good for most of these movies. Like that's just going to be, that should be the standard for these movies. So she's not being, it's not totally dishonest, but she's not giving you guys all of the information.
There were problems with it, you know, but it has an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I hope that they look past that Rotten Tomatoes score and to a lot of the criticisms that this film is getting, because right now it is up in the air. Like the big thing is going to be next week. How good are the domestic numbers going to be continuing into the next week? Can this film do enough to be considered just an uptick for the DC universe?
But see, this is why I don't clown myself on videos like this. This is why no one should do this. The movie did really good Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And this video was recorded over the weekend. She made it, I believe it came out on a Monday, either a Monday or a Tuesday, which means she recorded it pretty much over the weekend or like early Monday before all the numbers for the weekdays came in. This is why you don't make videos like this. You don't. You wait. You wait. You're not a box office analyst. I'm not a box office analyst, so I'm not going to make a video analyzing the box office this way because we are not the people that we don't do this for a living. There's other channels with people who are far more capable of analyzing the box office. It's just, okay, let's continue.
To get an entire new universe and build from here and get many more films and just grow the audience and the box office from there. Like, that's the big thing, is I can see WB not caring if they don't get 700 million on the first film, as long as the trajectory is in the right direction and they can build on it. Well, if they decide to build upon this universe, that will be a great shame, because Superman turned out to be a disastrous movie.
I keep hearing this word disaster around Superman. I think it's probably it's the new word that they're using, like woke, slop, disaster. It's one of those new words. Films are subjective, okay? But I can't imagine going into this movie and thinking that it is a disaster. I don't see that. To me, it's not giving disaster. So she's going to explain to us, I guess, in this video why she thinks it's a disaster. And she's like, she typically has bad takes. So I'm curious to what she's going to say. Let's get into this.
Listen, guys, in a way, I am glad that the box office for the domestic is performing the way it is, that we finally have more movies that are coming out that are doing the over $100 million mark. But I am tired of saying the same thing that I have said all year. Well, at least it'll help the theaters. Horrible film, but at least it'll help the theaters. Because you know what? There's
horrible. So she thinks Superman is horrible. Out of all the bad movies we've got over the years, she thinks Superman is horrible. That's crazy, fam. That's crazy.
Some other films that did really well this year: Lilo and Stitch, Minecraft, Jurassic World Rebirth. All of these films, just absolutely terrible films that people are going to see regardless of if they're terrible or not, or because it's a distraction. It's a lot of noise on the screen. That's what these films are, but they don't hold up to an ounce of scrutiny.
They don't hold up to an ounce. Like, I think it's really interesting that we're supposed to, or at least the way she's framing this is that she says it's not bad to ask for more from superhero films, you know. But we're talking about like a level of scrutiny that shouldn't exist, I think, when it comes to like summer blockbuster movies. People just want to have a good time, right? That's it. When I come out of the theater, I just want to feel good. I just want to know that I had fun watching the movie. This is why the pedantic, nitpicky style of reviewing movies kind of annoys me, because like, I blame CinemaSins for this. I think CinemaSins is probably the one that I noticed first for doing this kind of stuff, because they were doing it in a tongue-in-cheek way. They were doing it in a way that's like, it didn't seem like they were being, I don't know, hateful towards the films. They were kind of just poking fun at them. And these guys have turned that same thing into like a business. Hating movies as a business. This is what they do for money. And it's so baffling to me that there are people that want to watch and engage in so much negative content. Like, I get it. People would watch stuff like Jerry Springer, reality TV, where you get a blend of like people you like, people fighting, things like that. I understand. It's like watching a wreck on the side of the road. But at a certain point, like, there has to be something that gives. This movie, I think, and as we get into her points, we'll find out more about what she thinks about it. I think this movie was fun. And I think that was a good juxtaposition from the DCEU, which, let's be honest, didn't win a lot of people over. There was a lot of issues with that franchise. Anyway, let's continue.
If Superman legs out at all, I think that will be the reason, is that unlike Zack Snyder films were boring to mainstream audiences. They really relied on a lot of slow motion. James Gunn's Superman is so much noise that maybe enough people will be distracted by that so that they won't think about how the plot doesn't make any sense, and the characterization and the development is actually quite shallow. I would refer to what movies have become these days as a Godzilla versus Kong analogy. The Godzilla x Kong versus Kong, or whatever you want to call it, movies are really bad. Really bad. They feign having characterization. They feign having any sort of plot. The real point of those movies is just an excuse to watch dinosaurs fight each other and make a lot of noise, or monsters in this case. And that's why people go to see the Jurassic World movies. But I feel like that's becoming every film, like Minecraft or now Superman. I feel like that is the exact analogy of what Superman is.
Okay, so let me point out to you why that's happening, because I want you to understand this, and I think it's really important that I talk slowly here. It's this stuff. This is the reason why. You guys have made a living out of trashing movies, and so it's finally affecting people going to the box office. It's finally affecting people leaving their house to go see films. So theaters and studios have resorted to surefire ways to get people to come in and see the movies. And it's like, look, shiny thing. You guys do what I like to call hindsight reviewing, right? You're doing hindsight reviewing, backseat driver reviewing. You're looking at something and then assuming that the best possible decision would be made in order to make the plot make sense to you. For example, if a character has two paths to take in front of them, and they take the worst possible path because they don't know what's going to happen on the other side of that, that doesn't make the movie bad. That means that character made a mistake. That means that character made the wrong decision. And you can apply this to so much of the criticism that these guys have about movies and films. So when you try to talk about logical problems in stuff that characters do in movies, it's typically coming from the place of you wouldn't make that decision. You're looking at it in hindsight and you're saying these were the possible outcomes that could have happened based on information that the characters in the movies didn't know. That is why that happens. From now on, I'm going to be watching out for hindsight reviewing. Talking about these movies like the characters can predict the future and they know what the outcome is going to be. Because that's typically, a lot of times when they say movies are bad, they do so because they're talking about characters not predicting what is going to happen in the future of a scene or a moment in the film.
Movie that maybe people see because it's loud and bombastic enough that it's a distraction for 2 hours, but there's no substance to it. There
doesn't have to be. People like fast food. There's no substance to fast food, right? There's no substance to that. Movies don't have to provide you with substance. They just have to be entertaining. At the end of the day, they just have to be fucking entertaining. You just have to have a good time. You're setting up this standard for a film that never said that's what it was. This movie was never ever comparing itself to like high art. It's a superhero movie. It's a fun movie to go to and lose yourself in for a couple of hours.
Quality to it at all. And it's the kind of movie that I know is going to fall apart within months' time. There were so many things about this movie that I wasn't even able to cover in my review. Like, I didn't even touch on the Jor-El character assassination. That seems like they're committing to that for now. My question with Superman, though, with all the flaws of the movie, is just focusing on one thing. My question is not, can you make an interconnected universe out of this? But how do you make an interconnected universe out of this? Let's take Lex Luthor, for example. Okay. He is such a shallow, one-dimensional cartoon character in this movie, where his entire motivation does not make sense. He lives in a world where metahumans...
His motivation doesn't make sense, and he's one-dimensional. Okay, so let's talk about what one-dimensional characters mean. So a one-dimensional character typically means that a character is defined by one trait. They have one thing that makes them who they are. And there's no more depth to them than that one thing. So typically it's just like the character is just an angry person. That's it. There's no dimension to that. So that's what one-dimensional would mean, like as an example. So Lex Luthor here, who has highs and lows, and makes decisions in the movie that are absolutely shocking that we've never seen from these characters, means he is more than a one-dimensional character. For example, when he goes and he talks to the government, when he talks to these individuals in governments and tries to like win them over, he's coming off as like this charming, smart billionaire, right? He's giving them that vibe, that energy from him. And then you see a scene where he's holding Superman hostage, locked him up, and he brings in a character that helps Superman on the street and threatens to shoot the character in front of Superman, and then does it in front of Superman. This is the same character who was charming and smooth, convincing enough with the government to get them to let him do something that he wanted him to do. There's times when he's very calm and collected, making rational decisions. There's other times when he's angry and screaming. He's got a love life. He doesn't see what's going on behind the scenes with her. He believes in her. He trusts her up to a point. It's a character flaw that he has. She's the blind spot for him. There's a lot of things going on with Lex that I think are very interesting. So one-dimensional, meaning defined by one trait. Which one trait? Angry? Is he angry all the time? No, he's not. But he's also calculated. He's also smart. He's also a character that wants to get Superman, make him look bad, get him canceled. So, like, using his ego as a weapon. He's also got a lot of ambition. Now, I'm not saying you can't dislike him. You can dislike him for whatever reason. But to call him one-dimensional is not... Like, this is the whole, like, womanizer versus ladies' man situation. I don't think you understand what that means. You're saying it because you've heard other people say it.
Have existed for 300 years, that yet he's chosen to be jealous of Superman, particularly because he says Superman makes him feel small. In this world of metahumans, where Superman is not even portrayed to be the most powerful of them,
He is portrayed as the most powerful of them. Yeah, that's the thing, is we see him getting beat for the first time. That's the setup of the movie, right? Like, he's the most powerful metahuman, and all of a sudden, Lex has created a metahuman that can beat Superman because he was basically watching all of Superman's moves and calculating how to counter those moves, which is how he's capable of creating a metahuman more powerful than Superman by using his intelligence. So up until that point, Superman was undefeated. He was the strongest metahuman on the planet. So you weren't paying attention to the movie, clearly.
No sense. His plan is completely cartoonish in the movie. He's very, very stupid, actually, with how he gets defeated. And the only way to accept it all is if you just accept that this is a complete cartoon universe where everything is one-dimensional and nothing is to be taken seriously. But
again, one-dimensional doesn't make sense in this context. What do you mean about the universe being one-dimensional? What the fuck does that even mean? Is the universe defined by one trait? One attribute? No. So one-dimensional doesn't make fucking sense in this statement. Besides that, there's nothing wrong with the characters feeling more like cartoons. I think that makes this world interesting to me because I've enjoyed quite a lot of cartoons over the years. They're based on comic book characters. So I think it's fair to say that making them into a more cartoony version is allowed. It's allowed. They can do that because they're based on comic books.
That, like, how do you go, like, there's no depth to the character. So, like, for example, with Lex Luthor.
That's false. That's not a true statement. There is depth to the character. What are you talking about? You're saying stuff.
Luthor, how do you go in a sequel and add depth to him with this, or any of the other characters? How do you do a sequel or another movie set in a different part of this universe that maybe takes itself a bit more seriously?
The same way they do it in the MCU. The same universe where we have a talking raccoon flying through space also has street level characters like Daredevil. Okay, so like, yeah, talking raccoon, Daredevil exist in the same universe. See, it's that simple. It's really fucking easy.
The problem is everything is so heightened and so cartoonish and so ridiculously stupid in the Superman movie that it does not lend itself to any other kind of storytelling in an interconnected universe.
The MCU has lots of different movies with different tones to them. Lots of different shows with different tones. This is just dumb. This is dumb. So you're saying that they can't tell other stories in the universe because this one movie is a little bit funny. So that means there's no room for anything else. Look back at the DCEU. Look at that franchise. They were all over the place as well. But those characters all existed in the same world. This is just a dumb take. Like, this literally means nothing. This is literally nothing.
A Batman taking itself more seriously could not exist in this universe. Matt Reeves' Batman could not exist.
Well, he doesn't. That's why he's not part of this universe. But it's not even that. Matt has already said that he doesn't want that universe to be connected. So if they wanted to try and make it work, they could, but they just don't want to because they've decided they're going to let him have his vision of that movie. But it's not a part of the DCU.
And the way that Gunn has chosen to portray these characters as these 1 to 2 dimensional cartoons does not lend itself to giving any more depth.
1 to 2 dimensional. So now the characters have to be more than 2 dimensions. All right. God. Oh, this is rough. All right, let's continue.
In a follow-up film, which is what I really wanted to see. So with this sort of style that James Gunn has gone in, it's like he's trapped himself where there's not anything else that he can do in this universe and it make a lot of sense. And what do we have to really follow up on this movie? A Supergirl film, which I guarantee whatever Superman does, it will do well under half of that.
Guarantee. You heard it here. Mark your calendars. Mark your calendars.
But at least it's a spin-off to Superman, but after that we have a Clayface film, an R-rated Clayface film, before we even get another Batman film, and that is how James Gunn is rounding out his universe. Like, this does not make any cohesive sense.
By what standard? So what movie should have came out second? Are you going to give examples of how you would do it, or are you just going to say this is wrong? Like, if I would say, so if I were on her side and I was like, oh, Superman sucked, but I would love to have seen XYZ character get their own movie because I think that they could have built on this, that would be offering a solution to the problems that I have with the movie. That would be saying, here is a way to fix the issues that I have to try and make this universe work. Instead, what these guys do is they create problems without solutions. So they're not going to tell you how to fix anything. They're just going to tell you that it's bad. They're going to tell you that it's wrong. Because trying to fix it means they would have to admit that there is no issue. That's their thing.
And I don't even know if I understand the particular world that we're in right now. With other...
No, you clearly do not. You clearly do not understand this world. Clearly. I mean, we're almost 10 minutes in and you really... You're saying one-dimensional when it doesn't make sense. You said two-dimensional. You don't know what one-dimensional is, so I don't think you even know what two-dimensional means.
Movies that you're coming into a new universe like Iron Man or Star Wars: A New Hope, they'll give you a surrogate character to introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, Iron Man came out with the knowing full well that if it didn't do well, it wasn't going to be a shared universe. They wanted it to be. But they went into it knowing that could be a possibility. There's no shared universe. This movie is being made with a lot of moving parts to set up their new universe. So it's not the same situation as Iron Man.
Into this universe. Like, Luke is obviously living in the Star Wars universe, but he's a very isolated character who is just being introduced to the greater universe. So we get to follow him and be introduced to everything that the universe holds. Tony Stark is the same way. He's in an up and running Marvel universe, but it was at a time in that universe, in the context that there weren't supposed to be consistently a lot of characters with powers and fantastical things happening. It was part...
So again, here we go. Creating a problem where there is no problem. James Gunn said his intention was to introduce this movie while superheroes had existed for a while. That was the intent. So what you're saying is you're getting mad about something that you already knew about. We knew about this like a year ago. Like, he came out and said, like, I'm creating a universe where superheroes are a thing and we're not doing origin stories for everybody. So you're upset about something that either you ignored early on, you didn't know because you don't give a fuck enough to know, or you completely misunderstand what he's doing. It could be a combination of all three.
Of a shift going on in that world. So as we follow Tony Stark going in being introduced to that shift and being introduced to things greater than him, we are also introduced to that universe. But that is not what we have with Superman. We are hitting the ground running with no surrogate character to introduce us to this world, and just a movie that barrages us with constant things already running, characters we don't recognize, a world where
characters we don't recognize. Is there are you a comic book fan or not? Like, who did you not recognize? Did you not recognize Mr. Terrific? Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Lex Luthor. I mean, maybe you didn't know who the Engineer was if you didn't read those comics, but it's pretty obvious. They literally explain that character in the movie. So, like, who did you not know Jimmy Olsen or Lois Lane? Like, what character did you not know? Metamorpho, another character you should know. Like, which one did you not know? Because I think you're just saying that you're pretending to be confused on behalf of people that you think were confused. So she's like, I wasn't confused because obviously I know these characters, but I'm sure there were some people out there that were confused. So clearly it was a mistake. Clearly it was a problem.
Lex Luthor can make pocket dimensions and metahumans have existed for 300 years and there's a Justice Gang and there's all this kind of stuff happening, and when it just happens so fast that I don't feel like I know this universe, and I don't.
But you just dissected it. You called it one-dimensional. You said it was one-dimensional. So was it so simple that it was one-dimensional? Meaning there was only one defining trait about this universe. So very simple universe to understand. Nothing else there. Or was it so overly complicated that you didn't understand the universe? Meaning that it had to be more than one-dimensional because there were facets and layers to it that you didn't understand. So everyone, pay attention here. This is once again her saying dumb shit. She accused the universe of being one-dimensional, but here she says she doesn't understand the universe. So did you not understand it when you called it one-dimensional? So you were just saying it? Or is it too complicated and therefore your statement about it being one-dimensional was wrong?
Feel like it's a great place to start for building upon it when I feel like it already handed us kind of a mess. With a lot of the criticisms with the Superman film, though, there are Superman fans that are acknowledging them. Things like Jor-El's character assassination and say, hey, wait, they can fix these things in an upcoming film. But I gotta say, I'm getting flashbacks because that is exactly the excuses that people use for films like Man of Steel and Force Awakens. And we saw how that turned out. You should not be coming out of a film trying to defend it and excuse it as these things, all these flaws that people see can be fixed in a future film.
Is that an excuse or is that a speculation? Which one is that? I don't think of it as an excuse. I think of it as a speculation. When I was talking about my issues with the movie, we talked very in-depth about the Jor-El message. And there's lots of different ways they could go with it. We speculated on directions they could go with it. We speculated about that. So saying that it's bad right away out the gate because you don't know where it's going to end is short-sighted. Like, you could say you didn't like it and that you hope down the road that they change something, but to say that it's bad because you just don't agree with the creative choices, so weird. It's so weird.
Because the film needs to stand on its own, as we've seen. A film needs to be good on its own. It cannot be called good if you are constantly having to defend it by these things could be fixed in a future installment.
Well, that's really weird because you are trashing the film based on things that haven't happened. The entire first portion of this, you were getting mad because you're saying there's no possible way that movies could spin off. There's no possible way stories could continue because the movie was too silly. Therefore, subsequent movies would be silly. So your entire first argument about this movie was that things that are coming after the film would be bad because this movie is responsible for all of those things. But here you're saying that that's not a good metric, that you shouldn't use that because you don't like the way Jor-El is portrayed, so you're not going to give it the grace to allow them to do that later on. So in the same conversation, you've chastised the movie and blamed it for all the subsequent things that come out of it, saying that it's going to be awful, it's impossible, it's bad, blah, 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 whatever. And also said that they can't change this later on because this movie needs to stand on its own. Fam? See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? All of her arguments fall apart.
I feel like I'm on a loop. Like, we're right back to where we started with Man of Steel, where the movie was not good, but everyone insists that it will get better as we go forward. But once again, I just don't really see how you build on any of this stuff. And what is very, very key is that James Gunn...
So are you judging the movie based on what it is or what it's building towards? If the movie needs to stand on its own, then you should be judging the movie based entirely on what happened in the movie, not on things that are coming later, not on plans that are happening later. Judge the movie on its own merits, period. You said a movie should stand on its own, which means for the rest of this video, anytime you call the movie out for something that may happen later in the DCU, I'm going to pause it and remind you that you should be judging this movie based on its own merits.
Is now the Kevin Feige of DC. And as I saw with what we saw of Supergirl in the movie being a drunkard girl who parties, all of the characters, even if James Gunn hires other directors.
Well, I mean, that's the Woman of Tomorrow storyline where she does that. That's that story. So that's what they're establishing with her character. I think they did a really good job with that.
As he has done for Supergirl, like they're just carrying out his vision for the characters. It's all James Gunn stuff. It's James Gunn's universe, so he doesn't really have interest in Superman. So Superman is going to get the shaft for a majority of the film, so he can focus on the Justice Gang and a lot of quirky characters that he likes to use. Supergirl, she's going to be based off of a James Gunn story that he likes by Tom King, where she is a swearing drunkard party girl, because that's not what Supergirl is in the large majority of adaptations and content.
It doesn't matter how many adaptations it is or how long she was that. You can make a movie based on a singular Elseworld story if you want. That is totally okay. There's no rules saying you can't. Matter of fact, you can make a character completely different in a movie from any iteration of them in a comic because it is an adaptation. That's what we're talking about here.
But that's what she's going to be because that adds up with James Gunn's taste. My point is here, it is all James Gunn's taste, but he has a very narrow taste and one that is not going to be able to handle all of the diverse characters of the DC universe. Batman is the scariest one to think that this guy could handle because Batman...
So here we are again, pausing it for this, judging this movie based on things outside of this movie. Okay? She's talking about judging the movie based on its merit. It should stand alone. She has yet to talk about anything in the movie other than the Jor-El message that she thinks is bad that is entirely dedicated to this movie alone. Her complaints about Lex Luthor are, what were we going to do with Lex Luthor in another movie? Where are we going to go from there? How are these characters going to look at other films because of how they were established in this movie? Where does this universe go now that we've seen this one movie? These are all complaints about things that are happening after this movie. So the only legitimate criticism that she's given is that she doesn't like how Jor-El's message was portrayed in this movie. And that's the only valid one that she's had so far, because everything else has either been a complete lie, dishonest, or judging the movie based on things that happen after the film.
Batman and his entire universe is something that 100% doesn't add up with any of James Gunn's taste. Interestingly enough, James Gunn said that Batman is the hardest character to crack right now for him. What? Are you kidding me? Batman has been the easiest character to crack for all of DC for decades at that point. There's nothing about him that got caught up in what do we need to do to modernize him and change him. He's a relatable character, and they've done so much successful content with him and had so many good stories that haven't even been told yet, even though James...
Are we still talking about Superman? Are we still talking about... We're 12 minutes in. I think you've made one, maybe two criticisms of the movie itself. Is this a Superman video, or because you said that you're judging it based on the movie, right? I think we established that already. Okay, let's continue.
Gunn seems to think they've all been told, which is not true. Batman should be the easiest character to do, but I bet it's harder for James Gunn because this character does not add up with his taste, and I just don't want to imagine how James Gunn is going to handle that universe. And by the way, James Gunn was emphasizing so much on the importance of scripts and importance to get the script done, but then the first movie he does, the biggest problem with it is just how bloated and messy and nonsensical the script is. So if...
Why, though? Are you going to say it's bad because of what happens in the movie or what it means for the characters later?
Supergirl and Clayface are up to his standards on...
Okay, we're talking about characters outside of this movie. Okay, as I thought.
Scripts, how good do you think those films are going to be? Are we really going to get like a 10-year universe off of this mess that James Gunn has turned in? And is he really going to continue to be the architect of all of this when he turned in a Superman movie this bad, all because it maybe has a higher score on Rotten Tomatoes for some reason, or because the Superman fanboys are just eating it up and praising it as much as Star Wars fans did for The Force Awakens? Are we really...
She's talking about Star Wars because she's trying to draw a parallel to all the hateful, toxic Star Wars fans. I'm not falling for it. I'm not taking the bait.
Plagued with the wrong guy, with the wrong, most narrow taste, working on all of these DC characters when he's proven that he is quite inflexible with this kind of stuff. He needs everything to become his own comedic dude bro style of humor.
Did it ever occur to you that that's why he was hired? Like, did that ever cross your mind? That the reason why he was hired for the job is because that's what they want for this universe? I mean, did they hire him to not do James Gunn stuff? Yeah, let me pick up the phone here. This is David Zaslav, right? Yeah, James, I've watched your movies and I hate what you do. So I want you to come and be the head of the division for DC over here and make movies that are they're nothing like the stuff that you do. The complete opposite of what you do. I want you to make the most different movie that you possibly can. No James Gunn flair at all. I want you to make it so it doesn't feel like anything you've ever done, because I want you to take a massive risk, and I'm hiring you to be someone else. I mean, is that how that worked? They hired James Gunn to come in and do stuff that was nothing like James Gunn? I don't think that's why they hired him. I think they hired him because they wanted this for their universe. Now, you don't have to like that, but that's why he was hired. That's the reason why he's there.
Which is the fundamental problem of why he didn't establish a universe here. Everything needed to be a joke. And so that's how we got this heightened, overly comedic universe that doesn't lend itself to anyone else. We will see what happens in the coming weeks domestically. I could either see this being, once again, a Godzilla versus Kong situation where people go see the movie, at least domestically, as a distraction. And that gets it enough to continue on going forward with a universe. Heaven help us. But
based on the numbers, I think it's going to hit 500 million, like, total. I think it is. So I don't think we have to worry about them not making another movie. I think it's pretty much, I think it's inevitable that it's going to make 500 million. Look, I could absolutely be wrong, but looking at the numbers and the trajectory of the movie, I think it's got a really high probability of doing that.
Other side, I can see that this dropping a lot because it is not a film that holds up to any sort of even a pin drop of scrutiny.
What's funny is I know people that have seen it multiple times. I've seen it twice already. I have friends that have seen it like 3 or 4 times. So take that for what it's worth.
And I think that people are going to see that. But the reason why I think that so many people are eager to praise this film and eager to see what they want to see in this film, guys, this is an obviously bad film. It's obviously...
It's not obviously bad. You can't get frustrated and be like, I don't like this thing, so everybody has to hate it. That's dumb. That's a bullying tactic. It really is. It's like a manipulation tactic. You are telling the people that watch your videos that the movie has to be bad, that there's no other opinion that you can see out there. Watch this. You can hate the movie, Jesterbell. You can absolutely hate it. It doesn't have to be your vibe. You don't have to like James Gunn. You don't have to like the comedy. It can be your least favorite movie of the year. Okay? However you want to look at it. That is absolutely fine. I don't have any problem with that. I enjoyed the movie. I went and saw it twice, and I'm excited to see Supergirl when that comes out. You see how that works? People can watch something and take away a different vibe about it, a different feeling about it. You don't have to tell other people how they feel about stuff.
Mess, but I think a lot of people just want to see what they want to see from it. It didn't matter what kind of film James Gunn made. This is the same thing that happened with Man of Steel. People needed to see the best thing out of it because it had to be good.
Yeah, it sucks when people go into something with like high hopes, right? When you go into a movie and you want it to be good, that sucks. It must be awful. It must be bad. Like, these guys go into movies hoping they're going to be bad. For them, that's the way they view media. They go in already assuming the worst, so therefore they're always going to be bad. These movies are always going to be bad for that reason. So that's the thing with them. They can't even fathom that people go into movies either completely open to whatever the movie is or hoping the best for a movie. They can't imagine that world. Imagine people excited about seeing a movie and wanting it to do well. Unbelievable. How dare they?
They had to be able to keep up Superman as a character in this universe. But guys, it isn't bad to want more from superhero films. So there's people on board of these films like this and Thunderbolts that are just praising them to high heaven because I don't know, honestly.
Because you don't understand what a good movie is. That's just the reality of it. You just don't understand it. Like, you are trying to put this film into a box of your own taste, and that is what you believe a good movie is. So you're like, this movie is objectively bad because it's in my box of bad movies. No, you don't like it, and that's fine. And you can subjectively dislike the movie and say that it's bad. But that doesn't mean that other people can't like them. I think that's a really dumb way to try and critique media. It's probably one of the worst ways to critique media. So anyway.
Thunderbolts because it was just mediocre and not a complete disaster, or this movie because, I don't know, it wasn't Zack Snyder? Guys, let me tell you why I got into superhero films. Because at the time when I was growing up, they were coming out with films like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight and Iron Man. And with these films, what we were starting to see from superhero characters that we hadn't seen in, say, the 70s and 80s, all due respect to those films, is that those films did not have a lot of depth to them. The characters were very 1- and 2-dimensional.
Again, one and two dimensional. You don't know what that means. Please stop saying it. You don't understand it.
But when it came to the films coming out in the late 2000s and the 2010s, superhero movies started to have a lot of depth. They started to be taken a lot more seriously, not as overly serious movies, but as 3-dimensional characters.
I mean, do I have to even... I don't have to say it. Let's continue.
Like, looking back at the films that we used to get when superhero movies were in their heyday, I am shocked. I'm shocked looking back now that a film like Logan was ever allowed to be released. A visceral experience and a film that was a character study with true depth to it. We were getting psychological thrillers like The Dark Knight. We were getting movies that were incredibly character-driven like Iron Man and the Avengers films, which, when done right, were very character-driven. It truly was the quality of these films that garnered that much success and made people attached to these characters and made them want to watch every movie, even though not every movie would be great. There was a lot of mediocre stuff. But when the next project you watch could be the first season of Daredevil on Netflix, that got people attached to want to see more and more of this stuff. But now superhero content has regressed and devolved back into the eras where it was all shallow noise. Captain America, Brave New World, and Superman are just shallow noise, even though, yes, Superman is better than Captain America, Brave New World.
But you called it a total disaster. You said it's a total disaster. When someone calls something a disaster, there's nothing redeemable about it, right? Like, if my car gets into an accident and I say it was a disaster, I'm not going to say, well, at least the steering wheel is okay. Right? I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say, oh, well, this other car was also a disaster, but mine, the windshield didn't break. So that makes it okay. You can't, there's no way to minimize that statement. Okay, let's continue.
When you look back at films that you used to get, Into the Spider-Verse, when you look back at films that you used to get for superhero movies, I understand completely why they were successful. I remember why these characters and stories were so meaningful and even formative to me. And I think, they 100% deserved that success. And I would like to one day be able to see that again. I would like to one day be able to see 3-dimensional...
That's fake. No, you don't believe that. You don't believe that. You and people in your space make far too much money doing this. This makes far too much money because there is no proof that you actually feel the way you do when the camera turns off. This is what I've said about boycotts too. It's the same way with boycotting. The only sort of like standard there is your own personal standard. It's like, the word I'm looking for is like, it's unverifiable for you. When you say these things on camera, we don't know when you turn this camera off if you actually love or hate the things you're talking about. We have no clue. All of that responsibility falls on your shoulders. It's like when your friend's like, I'm not going to buy that game. It's woke garbage. And it's a single player game. Do you know for sure that they didn't buy the game? Do you know for sure they're not playing the game? No. You're just taking their word for it. And that's all you have is your word. So when you say something like this, and I know for a fact that you make rage bait videos lying about stuff, which is a big red flag for me, being dishonest about things, pretending like you're speaking for people that may not understand the movie, even though you totally understood it. When you do those things, the conclusion that I come to is you're doing this for the money. That's the conclusion I come to. So I don't believe you when you say that you want these things to be better. I don't believe you. So you have to show me that you actually mean that in some meaningful way. Introducing problems with no solutions is not a meaningful way to engage with media that you want to be better. In this video, you did not offer any solutions to any of the things you complained about. You said that people were making excuses for hoping the best for the Jor-El situation, which means you have no way to fix that. It is an unfixable problem because according to you, the movie had to stand on its own merit. And then you spend the rest of the video judging the movie outside of its own merit because you have an issue with James Gunn. So you didn't even maintain that standard for yourself. So here we are. I don't believe you want these to be better. I don't believe that you really loved anything before. I think this is all just a big scammy way for you to make money on YouTube.
Superhero characters with real depth on the big screen again, and writing that is not overly rushed but is tight, and plots that actually hold up to scrutiny.
You never talked about that in this video. I don't think you didn't mention anything about it. I was waiting. It was a 20-minute video. I thought you were going to get into like more of the nuanced stuff in the film, the context in the film to explain why these things don't make sense. That's why I talked about being like a hindsight reviewer. But you didn't even get into that. You didn't even give us that. You went off on a tangent about everything but the movie itself.
Is that unlike this Superman movie are actually able to slow down and allow you to get to know these characters and their relationships and the chemistry between them and how they relate, rather than just trying to constantly bombard you with comedy so that you won't notice the fact that you're watching a bad movie with a convoluted plot. It's no wonder that younger people are not gravitating towards superhero movies like they used to. It's mostly people just ginned up on nostalgia because they're not creating superhero movies on the...
I'm going to speak anecdotally for a minute. I don't like to do this very often, but I've seen the movie twice. And both times that I went to the movie, the theater was packed and it was full of young people. There were just as many young people there as there were older people there. And a lot of the younger people were wearing Superman t-shirts. So at least from my own perspective, I know that younger people are watching the movie. They're going out, they're seeing the movie. So unless you have some study that's been done or some information that proves what you're saying, I don't believe you. I don't believe you're just saying it. Just saying it doesn't make it true.
Quality that they used to. And I don't think it's bad to ask for that kind of quality again and ask for them to try to achieve that level of quality again.
So you gave examples of movies and what those movies did, but you didn't try to apply it to the Superman movie. You didn't say this thing that should have been done in this movie should have been done in Superman specifically. You talked very generally about it. For example, you could have said, hey, I liked the way this story went. I wish that Superman did this thing, instead of trying to compare him to another character's design. Like, did you want Clark Kent to be more like Tony Stark? Did you want him to be more, because you brought up Iron Man. Did you want him to be more like Tony Stark or Iron Man? What does that mean? What does that mean? On the surface level, I guess you mean they could be more than one or two dimensions. But outside of that, you did, like, Clark Kent and Tony Stark are nothing alike. They're two very different characters. So when you make that comparison, I don't know what I'm supposed to extrapolate from that. I don't know how that applies to Superman. See, what I believe is you've seen other people like Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker and all these guys do this little song and dance. And so you feel like you can do it too. You can just be vague. I can just vaguely talk about stuff. No substance. Again, we're 17 and a half minutes into this video, and there's been nothing of substance here. You've offered nothing. No solutions to any of the things you've talked about. And everything you've tried to say could make something better is nebulous and vague. I want Clark Kent and Superman to be more like the first Iron Man movie. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything.
They ever want to get that audience back, because the suits in Hollywood do not care about quality. Obviously, they care about money. They only care about finding out what quality is, whatever that is to them, whatever, and they have a hard time figuring that out if it means profitability.
But that's applied since the first Marvel films. That standard has been the same for years. I don't disagree with you. I think a lot of people in Hollywood, the executives in Hollywood, don't really understand the stuff that they're putting money behind. They don't understand that. However, that has been the standard from the beginning. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Matter of fact, James Gunn was part of that beginning saga of Marvel. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, that film was a breakout hit for Marvel. That was James Gunn. So now you're telling me that that guy that did Guardians of the Galaxy, which is what got him the job doing this at DC, that same guy is incapable of doing the job? But you said you liked the earlier phases of Marvel. Yeah, it was 2014. So Guardians of the Galaxy the first movie came out in 2014. That was during the era of movies that you said you liked. So what changed with James Gunn from then until now? Because if you think about it, if you're saying that the executives at the studios, the people in charge, only care about the money, that means that you put it on the shoulders of the people creating the movies, writing the scripts, doing all that stuff in studio, which means James Gunn was responsible for that, which means he can be responsible for the success of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Right? We're going all the way back. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, James Gunn was responsible for it because you've established that studio executives don't care. So what has changed from that till now that makes him now incapable of doing that, and the studio executives still being the same? They didn't change. They're the same. So the only thing that could have changed is James Gunn. What has changed from his time at Marvel and the Suicide Squad movie, which is actually a really good movie, to now? What has changed? Other than you trying to paint a narrative about him, what has changed?
And money. If this is what people say that they just want from Superman and superhero movies, then this is what they are going to get. And that is the danger of just blindly approving of something just because it's a part of a character.
Who's blindly? You're making assumptions. Who is blindly approving of it? I paid to see the movie twice. I've reviewed it in depth many times. I've made many videos debunking dumb shit like this about Superman. Who is blindly loving the movie? Who's doing that? You have to give proof. That is an accusation. It is on your shoulders now to prove it. Oh, you can't. You can't prove it. Cool.
And a universe that you have an emotional attachment to and that you want to see do well. If you accept less, then you're going to get less in the future. And that's a real shame. If this movie, if this Superman that is as bad as it is the foundation of another DC universe, another potential 10 years of floundering and not using these characters properly and not even giving them good writing, which is exactly the same area.
Good writing. I wish these motherfuckers would stop saying that. You don't know what the fuck good writing is. You describe Lex as one-dimensional. Matter of fact, he's the only character you even really talked about in this video. He's the only one that you gave any sort of like criticism of. You just jumped over to like a bunch of vague booking shit.
Yeah, that they were in before, and it's eventually going to catch up to them financially as well. I want movies to do well at theaters, but I would...
No, you don't. I don't believe you. You don't give me any indication in the videos I've watched of yours that you want movies to do well. I'm going to say that's a lie. I'm going to call you a liar. I don't think you do. I don't think you do. You are making a lot of assumptions and accusations with literally no information to back it up.
Rather that good movies do well at theaters. That's why...
Good is subjective.
It would be a better option if Superman does not overperform or perform very well so that they learn to steer away.
If Superman underperforms, that's it. Done. It's done. If Superman underperforms, they will release Supergirl. They might do a couple of those Elseworld movies, but that's it. There's no more. You want it to fail because you think they'll reboot a third time. They will not reboot a third time. If James Gunn, with his track record, cannot come in with Peter Safran at the head of that division of Warner Brothers, the DC division, and make a cohesive, somewhat interconnected universe, that is it. It is game over. And you don't even understand that. It's like the Snyder Bros shit. We're not getting Snyder back. If this doesn't work, that's it. It is done.
From this direction. They need to do better than these kinds of scripts. They can't have someone like James Gunn running every single thing. Hopefully someday, we will have creators that understood what made superhero movies so popular in the 2010s and that
James Gunn made James Gunn made 3 of the Marvel movies that performed extremely well at the box office in the 2010s. Literally, those were his movies. All right, I take that back. 2 of the 3 came out in the 2010s. One of them was later because he got canceled by Marvel. And they brought him back again. Imagine that. He got canceled, but he was so fucking good they brought him back. But for some reason, he's incapable of doing this job. All right.
Level of quality, and maybe one day find their way back to it. But maybe they won't. Maybe that era of time was just a pocket in the universe and there's no way to get back to that. But I'm still not going to be fooled and delusional and think that these movies are better than that or in any way acceptable, or that I'm just blinded by nostalgia and I think that everything before was better. No, it was better. So my standards, whether you guys like...
This is like old people shit. I remember my parents, when I was listening to music back when I was younger, and I was listening to a lot of rap music and house music and stuff, they'd always say, well, back in my day, this music was so much better and this is bad. And fast forward to now, and rap music and house music are two of the most popular genres of music spanning the globe. Don't listen to this like nostalgia baiting bullshit. This is just dumb. It's speaking to the dumbest people on the internet. Don't be those dumb people.
It or not, are not going to be lowered just out of desperation. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for watching.
No, we're not going to watch anymore. Look, I just want to reiterate. Jesterbell does this for money. This is for money. I actually don't mind watching her videos because I think she contradicts herself so much. It's incredibly fun to call her out because in this video, she contradicted herself like a dozen times. Because when she writes out her notes, she doesn't think about the fact that has hypocrisy and double standards for things that she says. I don't even think she even knows it. Because at the end of the day, this is all about making money. And because of that, it doesn't matter how honest she is about anything that she says. All she has to do is keep tugging away and milking that outrage cow. Milk, the outrage cow. That's a visual I don't need. Anyway, see you guys in the next video.